Most people assume that being stuck means they're unmotivated, that if they could just push a little harder, organize better, or stay disciplined, that things would finally move. But that's not the truth. Over the past few months, I've read through a lot of responses from the What's Your Resistance style quiz, stories from people describing the quiet, almost invisible ways that they hold themselves back. And what I saw wasn't laziness or indecision, it was protection. That realization became the heartbeat of a short newsletter series I called What's Stopping You Isn't What You Think. And if you're on my Thrive newsletter community, you've already gotten these, but I wanted to bring it to the YouTube community because I felt like it would be very helpful, because the things that we think that are getting in our way, that are truly blocking our quote unquote progress or getting in the way of the things that we want to do, necessarily isn't what it is. It's usually, we think it's something that's pretty much surface level, and I get a little bit deeper into this. And so when I wrote that newsletter, I didn't write it to just give advice. I wrote it because I just kept seeing the same patterns in people who had already done the work, who had, read the books, who have gone to therapy, who practiced being present more and still froze when life just started to open up for them. And so the series became a way to name what's underneath the hesitation, to show how fear hides inside habits that look really responsible. Things like perfectionism, overthinking, waiting for the right time. And so when you begin to see what's really happening in those moments, you can finally work with yourself instead of trying to overpower your own process. And so that's what this reflection is about. We're not here to fix anything that's wrong, but recognize what's already working. And so the intelligent part of you that's been trying to keep you safe definitely has something to say. If you're new to this channel, my name is Francis. I'm a clinical therapist and a coach. And my whole focus here on this channel is to help people get unstuck, to recognize what those barriers are, live lives that they actually deeply love. And I believe that is 100% possible once you get to the root of things. And so in that newsletter that I wrote to my newsletter community, the first story I shared was about a book I wrote years ago, but I never released this book. It was 44,000 words, drafted, revised, polished. I even hired an editor, and we went through the whole shebang, and then I shelved it. And at the time, I told myself I just wasn't ready. It was the book. That was the issue. And what I really meant was I wasn't ready to be seen. I really wasn't sure I wanted all of my art to be exposed to the world. So that was part of it. And part of that, my values, all the things that I believed actually shifted as well. So it just didn't feel, it felt incongruent to who I was at the time. That's what perfectionism often is. It's not ever about high standards, but it's self-protection. It's really the mind saying, if I can control every detail, maybe I can avoid being misjudged. And so perfectionism dresses itself up as responsibility, and it tells you that you're being careful, professional, thoughtful. But underneath it all, it's the body pulling back from emotional exposure. And once you start to see the pattern clearly, something begins to shift inside of you, and you stop hovering over your work, waiting for the perfect moment, and you start letting things exist before they feel complete. So it's rarely the quality of the work that keeps you stuck. It's really the vulnerability that comes with sharing it, exposing it to the world. And so the longer that you wait for certainty, the harder it becomes to actually take action. Every delay strengthens the habit of hesitation. And what it quietly erodes isn't time, it's the self-trust. The second story that I shared in this series was we explored a bit about overthinking, that exhausting loop that looks like preparation but feels like pressure. And so for years, I thought my overthinking was a sign of maturity, that replaying every possibility made me, again, responsible, right? I'm thinking of all the scenarios, but overthinking isn't just mental, it's physiological. It's your body scanning for threat and calling it logic. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. Let me know in the comments if overthinking actually sounds pretty logical. When you've been punished for being wrong in the past, your mind works overtime to prevent that from happening again. And so you collect more data, rehearse conversations, ask for one more opinion. It almost feels productive, right? But it's really a way to avoid the risk of regret. And that's why more thinking never brings peace, because peace isn't something you figure out. It's something you feel when you stop negotiating with fear. And so if you recognize yourself in that pattern, just try this really quickly. Pause and say, oh, I'm noticing I notice I'm overthinking, and I'm overthinking because I really care about this thing. You probably feel your shoulders kind of drop and you feel a little bit looser, more expansive. And so that's your body remembering it's safe to care deeply without controlling. And so that small shift from control to compassion is what begins to restore trust in your own judgment. By the third email in the series, I wanted to name a pattern most of us miss: the illusion of progress. When I had quit my job in 2013, I got into real estate. And when I first started in real estate, I mastered the art of moving without momentum. I built systems, designed templates, watched tutorials, everything that looked like progress, but quietly kept me in place. It wasn't procrastination. Again, it was protection. Learning felt safe, but doing that felt a bit risky. So I convinced myself I was being productive. But underneath that drive was just fear. Fear of rejection, of course, fear of embarrassment, or even being seen as inexperienced. And so that's the illusion of progress. Activity that protects you from uncertainty while convincing you that you're growing. When your nervous system links information with safety, every new idea becomes another way to delay action. You call it research, but what you're really doing is avoiding emotional risk. And that's why I created the What's Your Resistance Style quiz to help you see which pattern of hesitation is running your decisions. Because once you understand the pattern, you can redirect your effort from learning to applying, from perfecting to practicing, from preparing to participating. Progress starts the moment you stop trying to feel certain and start testing what you already know. I always say life is just one big experiment. And the more that we experiment, something unexpected happens. You get more clarity and you get more trust in yourself. And so the fourth story, it was a personal one. It was about my first community that I launched called Thrive. For almost 2 years, I kept saying, I just need more time. All translated from real estate to here. I told myself I was refining, improving. I was being thoughtful. But underneath it, I was afraid again to be seen before I felt ready. So I added new workshops. I adjusted frameworks. I rebuilt systems, all to create a sense of safety. And we all do this in different ways. But I realized that readiness isn't a checklist. It's something that your body decides. And when I finally launched, 10 people joined. A few people drifted away. It's totally part of the process. But then a few months later, I realized I'd built something that looked right, but didn't feel right. So I closed it down. It was so uncomfortable, sure, because I was afraid of how it would look. So I was a little bit embarrassed closing it down. But what surprised me was the relief that came with just being honest with the idea. My body had been telling me the truth long before my mind would listen. And when I closed that whole community down, I realized I built it on other people's templates, other people's ideas, what I thought a community was supposed to look like. And it just didn't feel as authentic that as I had hoped it would have been. It felt out of alignment. So for me, it made sense to shut it down and start again. And so that's when I understood that I need more time is rarely about time. It's the nervous system's way of saying, I don't yet feel safe enough to hold what's next. And so the answer is never to push harder. We've been conditioned to believe that, but that is not it. It's to give yourself enough support to move forward without shutting down. And that might mean slowing the pace, asking for help, or taking one small step instead of 10. Each step teaches your body that movement can be safe. And that's what real self-trust is built on. It's this consistent proof that you can act before you feel perfect, before you feel certain, and actually survive the discomfort that comes with growth. And so the final story brought everything together in this series. A client I work with had been in a relationship that had quietly run its course. We've all been there when we know, oh, I'm staying way past the expiration date. So he knew it was ending. But every time the truth surfaced, he found a new reason to wait. Oh, it's her birthday. Oh, she just got promoted. It's the holidays. I'll do it after the holidays. On the surface, it looked like indecision, but underneath it, it was care mixed with fear. He didn't want to cause pain. And part of him was afraid of who he'd have to become once he stopped keeping the peace. He'd have to be the bad guy, the nice guy to be the bad guy. And that's what hesitation often hides. It's not apathy. It's affection trying to find a responsible exit, a loving exit. It's love trying to end something consciously and not destructively. But when you stay in that in-between space for too long, tenderness turns into tension. You start building resentment. And the care that once guided you starts to confine you. And so that's the paradox I kept seeing throughout this series. We don't resist because we don't care. We resist because something we care about is at stake. And we haven't yet built the capacity to hold the changes that care will bring. That's what's stopping you isn't what you think that whole series was really about. Behind every maybe later, every idea still sitting in a notebook, there's usually not a lack of motivation. There's just this nervous system of ours trying to just keep us safe, while another part of you is ready to grow. So you don't have to fight that. You just have to understand it. And that's what this ecosystem, the quiz, the free mini course, and the Thrive newsletter was built for. And so the quiz helps you identify your personal pattern of resistance. The mini course shows you how to move through it step by step without pushing or pretending you're not afraid. And Thrive is where we keep these conversations going. And all of this is free. You can get it in the links below. Because when we start to realize, oh, my hesitation isn't really a flaw, it's just feedback. It's information that I could use. It's your body saying something meaningful is about to shift. So the question isn't, how do I get rid of all the resistance that I'm feeling? It's, what is this protecting? And what would it take to take action anyway? So if this reflection resonated, start with one small action, take the quiz, explore the free course, or join the Thrive newsletter so you don't miss the next conversation when it unfolds. Because what matters most isn't doing more, which I actually talked about in the last video. It's learning how to take action with authenticity, even when you're not completely certain. And that's how change starts. It's really quiet, but it's authentic. And that's who we came here to be, authentic beings. Now, if this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. It really helps other people find the message and it helps grow the channel. And I really appreciate those who have subscribed already. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, so I'm really excited about that. Thank you for being here. And share this message with someone who you believe could definitely benefit from this message. And I will see you next week for another video. The next video is going to be talking about fear and freedom. Fear and freedom. We want freedom, but then we have this fear that's nagging at us. So stay tuned for the next video. And I'll see you on the other side of change. Thank you. Take care.